No line art, no sketch. Today we're following a Chinese art tutorial by Black Sister. I did not make up the name. They actually have an art class where you can pay to learn their method in more detail, but since I'm not paying shit, we have to get creative with this 2-minute speed paint. These are the 3 brushes I use. First one is called markers. This is for the base color. Second is flat watercolor opaque. This is for the entire rendering. And the last one is airbrush for soft shadows. Do you really need these brushes to follow the tutorial? Absolutely not. Use whatever brushes you're comfortable with. Just make sure that the rendering brush have faded tips for easier midtones and blending. Right, so the first thing you want to do is draw some blobs. Just blobs and blobs of colors. And here's another thing you want to do with your reference. Make sure you zoom out, like really zoom out, and not too much though, just until the only thing you see is just blobs of colors, because we're trying to get the big shapes of the shadows. The big shapes are important. You don't want to focus on the details too much in this stage. Oh my god, this is so shit. What in the hell am I drawing? You see, this is crazy because I've never drawn anything without a sketch. I don't know if I like it, but you know what? We have to try something new. And if this is going to improve our rendering skills, then why not? There is no harm in trying something new. There is definitely harm in whatever I'm drawing right now. Maybe I shouldn't think too much into this and just do what our teacher Black Sister does. Oh god, I do not have confidence to continue this drawing. You know, it's almost 2025. Why don't we make our New Year's resolution right now? I want to be bolder in my art, try something new. No matter how shit this is, as long as I'm learning something, it can't be that bad. Also, this is easier to do in black and white because you only have to work with shades of gray instead of too many colors. And by the way, if you haven't already found out from the thumbnail, we're drawing Ororon for today's video. You know what I really like about Ororon? His grandma, but also his hairstyle. And this guy has a hairstyle similar to Ororon's. The goal of this practice is to build confidence in creating contrast and strong shadows. Then add volumes with midtones. I'm just painting over the reference so you get the idea of what I'm talking about. This is why brushes with faded tips, like the one I'm using here, is perfect because you can easily create midtones just by applying the darkest shadow on top of the lighter one, and then just pick the color and you have midtones. That sounds perfect in theory, but can I practice what I just preached? We'll find out. Okay, so I'm looking at the tutorial. Black Sister is using red to indicate the facial features, which is just the eyes and ears in here, and they also use dark brown to indicate the eyebrows. Fong from the future here. The file got corrupted. Yeah, the recording where I draw some little red dots to indicate the eyes, nose, and mouth, it got corrupted. So yeah, we're just gonna skip ahead. That looks creepy. I read somewhere that Ororon's design is based on bats, right? And his personality is based on Batman. I don't think that's official, but his visual design is based on bats. Also, take care not to zoom in too much, because again, we're just drawing the big shapes of the shadow. I think for the eyes, we do need to sketch. See, Black Sister also sketched the eye on top of the painting. Some of you might be wondering, if we don't have to sketch, then we don't have to learn anatomy, right? No. What are you, high? Of course you still need to learn anatomy. These artists who skip sketching, there are more of them by the way, have a strong, like very strong understanding of anatomy, allowing them to paint directly and just eyeball the proportions. Do you also need a deep, extensive knowledge of anatomy like them? In my humble opinion, no. I mean, I don't have that level of knowledge either, but I rely on references as my guide. Basic knowledge is enough. Understand the basic proportions, use references, and practice so you get more comfortable with anatomy. My little speech would be more convincing if his face doesn't look like Slenderman with pink eye right now. I will draw the facial features in more detail for the eyes. As long as the inner corners are in the same line, you're good to go. Or maybe not. What is happening to his face right now? I know Ororon has tattoos on his face and arms, but I will edit that later. Right now, I'm just following the reference because this method of rendering is, how do I put it? Challenging. Let's say challenging. The downside of this method is the lack of a base. Sketches and line arts let you fix any anatomical mistakes before you jump into coloring or rendering. To be honest with you guys, I almost gave up multiple times because I cannot stand looking at the face I'm drawing right now. If Ororon's grandma was here, I would be like buried alive or something. Without guidelines or clean sketch to hold your hand, you'd have to rely on references. But references are not perfect. Sometimes they're blurry, doesn't have clear shadows, and human faces are not 100% symmetrical as well. So I had to eyeball the anatomy according to my basic knowledge of it to fix the painting. If it still looks off, find more references from similar angles. If you had a hard time simplifying the facial features, you can look for other artists' rendition. I redraw the eyes so many times because I was very unsatisfied with how they look, but I think they're okay now. And bat ears go downwards? Okay, after checking some bat images, I don't think they can. So we need to change this into upwards. This looks more like Ororon. His name is so fun to say, isn't it? Ororon. Right, so for the hair, I don't want to be too detailed about it because this is just a rendering tutorial. I'll just highlight the big shapes of it. And Ororon's hair is not that complicated. The big shadows are looking good. Now we can add in the smaller details. I will smooth over some rough brush strokes, not too much though. Still want some visible textures in my painting. I don't recommend using blur or smudge because they're too smooth. So use a low opacity brush instead. Some of you might be thinking that this rendering method is better when you're just drawing exactly like the reference. I used to think that as well because imagine if you have to draw like Goku. How do you even paint his hair? So what I do is find a reference with a similar hairstyle or outfit and then add in the character's unique elements. Genshin's character outfits are insanely detailed, which is why I prefer drawing them with as minimal fabric as possible instead of being a decent artist and practice. No, but I really should practice though. Since my art style is semi-realistic, I guess the challenge is to draw detailed outfits or hair, but make it more realistic. Like with Ororon's hair, he has this highlight, right? It looks cute in anime style, but needs more effort to paint in semi-realism because it can look unnatural. Okay, now this looks more like Ororon, but I feel like we're lacking some colors. I wanna see more red. So I'm gonna add a multiply layer, turn it down a little. Multiply makes the color more saturated and darker, so I like to take muted colors first. If it's not saturated enough, we can increase the saturation later. I'm going to apply it around his eyes, make it seem like he's blushing, he's shy. Now for the neck, we can use red and maybe some dark brown because this part of the neck is really close to the hair. I think we need to add some hard shadow, but focus on the area where it directly below like the hair. I cannot bring myself to draw armpit hair on Ororon, so yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to make sure that the drawing has enough contrast that we do not need to add any line art to the painting because I like to use line art sort of as a quick fix, you know. If my painting doesn't have enough contrast, I can just add line art on top of it. Flipping your canvas helps spot mistakes and asymmetry in facial features. Again, human faces are not 100% symmetrical, but try to fix it as best as you can so it doesn't look weird. I also flip my reference to avoid overdoing it. The face is not the only thing to fix. Sometimes it looks off because of the head or ears. Since Ororon doesn't have human ears, I will adjust his head a little bit. I'll also add long lashes, like Black Sister does, to enhance the stylization. You can experiment with stylization by exaggerating and simplifying because that's what stylization is all about. You can make the eyes bigger, add some sparkles, add in extra blush. All these little things make your painting unique instead of just copying the reference. Now we can add in Ororon's tattoos. I looked for references on his arm tattoo, but I'm not sure I'm drawing it right, so apologies if there are any inaccuracies. Okay. Now, I have some tips. if your painting is blending in with the background. First, increase the contrast with filter. Then, darken the background. You can darken it entirely or just partially. Oh, this looks so edgy. By the way, this only works in simple backgrounds or like flat backgrounds like mine. If your background is more detailed, you might need to try something else. This is optional, but I use chromatic aberration and adjust the distance so it looks like a line art, which I just realized defeats the purpose of this practice, but it looks cool, so whatever. It does blur the painting a little bit, so duplicate it first and erase the blurry parts. And that's about it. Sorry I didn't draw his pit hair. Wait, actually. You like it?